Hey, this is Lisa from CoochieCoochieCoo.com, and as you can see, I'm starting to get a bit Christmassy here. Today I want to share with you a free pattern and the tutorial for sewing your very own Santa hat. Let's get started. To sew your Santa hat, you'll need some red fabric and some white fabric. I suggest using faux fur white fabric and then some sort of soft red fabric. Fleece is a great choice, but I didn't have that honestly, so I'm just using a fuzzy red velour. You can download the free Santa hat pattern from CoochieCoochieCoo.com, put the pieces together and cut them out. You'll need some fabric scissors. I suggest using the smaller type rather than larger fabric shears. Pins, pen for tracing out your pattern and marking the direction of your fur. Red and white thread. I suggest using polyester because it is stronger and it will not snap. A size 110 sewing needle for wovens. I highly suggest using this because it's thicker, it's stronger, it can get through that fur fabric very easily. A hand sewing needle. This one is on the long side and it's also relatively thick. This will make it easier for making your pom-pom. Some polyfill stuffing for filling up your pom-pom. And finally, a walking foot. This isn't totally necessary, but it will make it a lot easier for you to sew over that thick fur fabric, especially when it is layered with the red fabric as well. Now let's get started. First things first, download the free sewing pattern from CoochieCoochieCoo.com and print it out. Then cut off the margins of every page and put the pieces together and then cut out along the size L of the pattern. The pom-pom is any size at all, it's for all sizes, so let's put this aside for the moment. The hat and the brim pieces have 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. Today I'm going to show you a medium because that's just a regular standard size that goes well for most people. Now, what I suggest you do is for the hat piece, you can just fold along these edges here if you want to do a smaller size. That way you can keep the pattern intact if you ever want to do a larger size. That way you don't have to print it out again. So what I do is I fold along here. I already folded it before. This is why it's easier for me to fold it now. So I fold down these 2 edges first, and then here this tapers up. It has the same length, but it's smaller down here. So just fold it here. Just kind of fold all the parts down. And this way, you'll have the pattern ready for size M or size small if that's the size you want to do. Same thing goes for the brim. This is just one large rectangle, so you can use, you can cut it out for size large and then just fold it for whatever size you want to use. Now I want you to look at 2 things here. I have 2 sets of markings here. There is cut 1 and cut 2. Basically what this is if you don't have enough of the fur fabric or the white fabric that you're using to do one long piece, which is what I suggest you do because that way you'll have fewer seams to have to sew over and they'll look better too. But if you don't have the possibility to do that, you can do 2 pieces. So you use this part here. So let's say we're doing size M and I'm going to cut 2 pieces of the brim to put together. I just fold it here and I cut out my 2 pieces of fabric. Oops, here it's a little too long, so just fold that under. And so I'll cut out 2 pieces like this. However, I am going to do 1 piece, so I'm going to fold it here, and I'm just going to cut 1 piece of fabric. All right, let's start with the red part of the hat, the main part. So put your fabric down, pay attention to the nap if there is one. I'm using this sort of fake velvet. It has a very, very short nap, but it does go in a definite direction. So I'm making sure that it goes down like this. I've folded my fabric in half, right sides facing. Put the pattern piece on. I've already prepared it for size M. Just put it here. Make sure that it's following the grain line and the nap direction. Then you can pin it in place. Once you've pinned everything in place, just cut out around the pattern piece. And here are your 2 hat pieces. Let's put these aside for the moment. Okay, let's now lay out our fur fabric. You're going to want to put it fur edge down. We want to work from the wrong side of the fabric because it's got this regular knit part that you can actually see and write on easily. You can mark it easily. Now pay attention first of all to the nap. In this case, the fur direction is going down like this. So what I always suggest doing when you're working with fur is to put a little arrow on the back to show which direction the nap is going in. So here's my arrow, and I'll know that the nap is in this direction. This will be useful later on too. Take your pattern piece. I've already prepared mine. I've folded over this edge so that I'm doing size M, cut 1. So I'm going to put it here. If you're going to cut 2, just fold it like I already showed, like this. Put it like that. Make sure the nap is going in the same direction for both pieces, and you can cut out 2 pieces and then just sew them together with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then you'll have a whole piece. Okay, but anyway, I'm doing a 1 piece, so I'm going to line it up here. I already have a straight edge here because I already made a hat with the same exact piece, so it fits perfectly here with the way my cut is. Make sure that the nap is going in the right direction. Also notice here we have the selvage of the fabric. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you can definitely see that it's the selvage. However, on the other side, it just looks like normal fur anyway. So I don't have any problems. I just use that part of the fabric, honestly. You might, however, want to just move it a little bit over. That way you can cut here cleanly and not have all this fur hanging off. So what I suggest doing, rather than pinning and cutting, I like to actually just trace around this fur part. So just trace around your rectangle. Now we're going to cut out our piece along the line. Okay, and here's my brim piece. All right, so now let's do the pom-pom. Okay, so I've put my fur fabric down, again, furry part down. Here is the nap. So again, I'm going to put a little arrow just to show the direction of my fur, of the nap. Okay, then I'm going to take my pom-pom pattern piece. It doesn't matter, it's a circle, so there's no specific line for this, but this is useful for when you're cutting. So I just put it down, you can see I've made another pom-pom here, and trace around. Now we're going to cut out around this circle. This time though, we're going to be careful of the nap because it is nice to have that little bit of extra fuzziness that comes out to cover up the whole of the pom-pom. So again, put your scissors under little by little. Don't rush through it. Okay, you can kind of feel as you slip the scissors underneath that there's this base fabric, this knit fabric, and you can slip the scissors along underneath that without actually cutting the furry part underneath. So here you can see that this furry part is still here. So we want to do that, go all the way around. Okay, so now I've cut out my circle for the pom-pom. You can see here that there's the fur that goes over the edge. That's the direction of the fur. We cut underneath that first so that we could leave it. Up here, there isn't because the fur was coming from this other direction. We cut off, so there's nothing to go over there. However, you might find that there are bits that come off. That's just the ends of the fur from the fabric above. All right, let's put this aside and let's start working on the hat. Okay, so we've got our Santa hat pieces. Let's unpin the pattern piece. Okay, we're going to pin together the, we're going to pin together the sides going up 1 and 2, but we're going to leave the bottom open. Okay, now we've pinned up both sides. Now we're going to sew both sides with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. I suggest you start from the bottom and work your way up to the tip, and then once again from the bottom and work your way over to the tip. With these corners, you can either leave them a sharp corner or you can kind of curve them. It's your decision. Do whatever you want. Then, when you're done doing that, you want to sew a zigzag stitch or use your serger or your overlocker machine to finish off those edges so they don't fray. And here is our hat part. You can't see I used a red thread for stitching along the sides, and then I finished off the edges with an overlocker. Now notice here at the very tip, normally you would snip off the end to make it turn easier. I actually didn't because I don't want a perfect point when I turn this right side out. So let's now start working on the brim. Next, take your fur brim piece with the nap going down, fold it in half this way, and pin together the open edges. Next, you're going to sew down this edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. I really suggest that you use your thicker needle, the 110 or at least 100, and also to use your walking foot. Okay, I've sewn down with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now notice these edges, I did not actually trim them or finish them off. What I'm going to do is let them open up like this. Now, we're going to put the wrong sides together, just fold them all together like this all the way around so that we have all the fur on the outside. The first part that we want to match up is where the seam is. In my case, I have 1 seam. If you cut 2 pieces of fur, you're going to have 2 seams. So whatever you have, take your pin and put a pin in the seam area there so you're holding them together. Now fold it in half and we're going to get the other end here. So this is the other end exactly across. Now what we're doing is we're marking this in 4ths, but we're also joining these 2 sides. Now look here, these are not matching up, so I'm going to have to pull this up a little bit, match these edges while keeping this here. Let's put the pin in again. There we go. So now we have the 2 ends marked here. So I've got here a yellow pin and here I've got an orange pin. Now we're going to mark these other quarter parts. So to do that, we match up our 2 pins. So here's my yellow, here's my orange, put them together, flatten it out, and here we've got 1 other quarter. Let's take a pin. This time I'm going to use a black pin. Now again, notice here that the 2 edges aren't meeting up exactly. So let's just move this part up a little bit so that they're meeting up and pin them together. Then let's do that last quarter part. Oops, I'm losing my pin here. Make sure you don't lose your pin. Fur fabric can sometimes be slippery, so be careful that you don't lose your pins. All right, so actually this is not perfectly, I can see it slipped around. So look at this. So I have my yellow and my orange here matched up, and look at that. I actually put the black a little bit off to the wrong part, so let's move that over. It actually goes here. Let's make sure I have both layers. Okay, now let's do this last one here. It's over here. Okay, so this is our last one. Let me get another pin. This time I'll use a blue. All right, so this is the point where it goes, but again, we need to make sure that the 2 parts match up. So let's match these up perfectly and put that back in. Let's just check and make sure that that actually is in quarters. Okay, so we've got our 2 here and our 2 here. I shouldn't have used yellow because you can't see it very well, but there's the yellow and there's the orange. Okay, excellent. Now let's do the same thing, but with the brim of the hat itself, the red hat. So here is our hat piece that we prepared before. All right, the 2 ends here are pretty obvious where they are. So we're just going to mark the other quarters. So to do that, we put together these 2, we put together the 2 seams. So, all right, there we go. Then kind of flatten out in this direction. There we go. Let's put a pin there. And let's do the same thing right over here. So again, it's lined up there. Let's flatten it out like this. And we'll put another pin right here. Okay, so now we've got both the red hat and the white brim marked in 4ths. Let's put them together now. So I like to start with the brim where we have the seam. Okay, and I don't want to put the seam where the seam of the hat is because it'll just create too much bulk, and I like to keep these hat seams on the side, so we'll put this so it'll be like in the back. So what you need to first do is take your brim and take it so that the fur is going down like that. If you have it like this, where the fur is going up, you're going to want to turn it inside out. Oops, let's flip that around. Okay, so turn it so that where you have this seam here, the fur is going like this. Now put it around the red hat. So the red hat is going to go inside. Remember, the hat is still inside out, so you can see the stitching there. So let's put this here, and we're going to match up this pin here that's in the center with this one here where the seam is. Okay, we're going to match them up so that they are all in the same point. So we have 3 layers of fabric. We have the 2 layers of the brim because it's folded over, and we have the 1 layer of the hat. Take one of the pins, actually let's take them all out, and then pin them together. There we go. So now the red part and the white part are pinned together. Now let's move over to the next part. Whoops. All right, now let's move over to where we have a side seam and we have our next pin. So again, we're going to match up the side seam with the black pin here. Well, I mean, your pin can be whatever color, mine is black. So it doesn't matter what color it is, obviously. So match them up nicely. Take the pin out and pin them together so that, again, you have all 3 layers, the 2 layers of the brim and the 1 layer of the hat. Go around again. Here we've got the pin that's in the other seam here. This is going to be the front of the hat. Here we have our other pin here in the brim. Okay, we're going to put them together, match them up, take out the pin, reposition this one. There we go, our 3 layers are together. And let's do one more. We have here, we've got this last pin here, and we're going to match it up with this seam. So we have this seam here. I'm going to match them up, take the pin out, and just put it in again. So now we've got our brim attached to the wrong side of our hat. You see that? So it opens up and it's pinned together. What we're now going to do is open up the free arm of your sewing machine, put it right inside, and you're going to sew all around here with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Okay, so now we've sewn our brim all around the edge of our hat. Now, I forgot to mention before that I would actually put extra pins between those quarter portions that we marked before. I would actually put 8ths. That would helps keep all the 3 layers all together. Now, before we continue, just check and make sure that you've gotten all the layers in here. You don't want to accidentally have any parts left out. Now here everything seems okay. Also when you sew this part, you definitely want to use a walking foot and your nice thick 110 needle if you've got it, because that'll make it a lot easier. This is really chunky, so that helps. Then when you're done with this, if you have any weird extra parts like here, you can trim those off, and then you want to sew around the edge with a nice wide zigzag. You can use a serger too, an overlock machine, but I honestly prefer just using a zigzag because all this fur can kind of get caught up in your overlock machine and make a big mess. It's easier to just do it in a sewing machine. Okay, and here you can see I've zigzagged around all the edges. This keeps all the fluffy bits from coming out all the time, and also when you wash it, it'll protect your edges. Now, let's see what our hat looks like. Turn the red part right side out. You can shake it, you can kind of poke out the tip as much as you want. It's a pretty good tip, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put a pom-pom there, so it's going to get covered up anyway. Okay, so here you can see this sewn part here. What we're going to do is fold the brim up. So just kind of fold it. You can see here that we're leaving it, so there's a bit of red there, a bit of the white coming out. And you can go like this. Here is the seam, so this is going to go in the back, and here is the front. It's looking great. Now let's add our pom-pom. Now it's time to hand sew. Get your circle of fur fabric, put a knot at the end of your thread. Use a double thread. This will make it more resistant. Then get your fabric, stick the needle in right close to the edge, and go in and out and in and out, catching only the fabric and not the fur underneath. Pull the needle through, leave some of the thread sticking out here, and continue like that all around. Here you can see I've gone all the way around right back to where I started. There are the two pieces of thread sticking out, one with the needle still attached. Now we're going to pull the threads one by one, a little at a time, to gather up the edges of the fabric. And you'll see it starts gathering up and making kind of like a cup or bowl shape here. Take a little bit of your stuffing here and just put it in. You don't need very much, just enough to kind of fill up that space. Look, there was too much there, so that's plenty. Okay, continue pulling the threads little by little, and you'll see that the opening there just closes right up. So then you can tie a knot. When you get this knot done, pulling it tight, you'll see that the hole closes up a little bit more. It's just a little bit there still. Hold it down and make another knot, so the double knot will keep it nice and tight. Then take your needle that's still attached to the thread, put it in on one side of the hole, and bring it out on the other side. Pull tight. You can go back and forth a couple of times if you want. Then go in the other direction. So making a sort of cross shape. So you can see I'm going through, I'm catching the fabric. Pull it through, and pulling tight, it cinches up that opening so it's nice and closed. Then just tie another double knot. And your pom-pom is all set. Okay, so hold the tip of the hat in one hand, and you've got your needle with the pom-pom attached in your other hand. Just start going like this. Go through once, and then just try and keep this other thread out of the way, and just go through your pom-pom, the very edge here. Okay, pull nice and tight, and your pom-pom is attached a little bit. At this point, I'm just going to put a little knot here just to kind of help keep it in place. Oops. All right, okay, so I'm knotting these two threads together. All right, let's just leave that extra thread over there, and we're just going to go back and forth a few times through the tip of the hat. So just right through the tip here with your needle. If you want, you can use a thimble. That'll make it a little bit easier. It doesn't have to be right at the tip. I actually prefer it being a tiny bit down because it kind of helps pull it in, so it's not like, I don't know, I just prefer the way it looks there. Then go through the edge of the pom-pom like this, and then you're going to go back and forth and back and forth. So back and forth, there we go, through the hat again, and through the pom-pom again. Okay, and you can go back and forth as many times as you want. If you want to get it nice and secure, you can do it more times. If you don't really care, just a few times, I'm sure that's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to go through one more time. Okay, oops. Okay, and then let's take that other thread. Where is it? It's kind of camouflage here. There's the other thread. Let's tie another knot. Now normally I would be using a white thread for this so that it matches the pom-pom, but I used red so that it would show up better in the tutorial. Okay, so we've got a nice knot here. I'm just going to cut off these threads now. And there is your pom-pom. You can shake it out a little bit if it's gotten mucked up, and it gets nice and fluffy. And there we have it. That was easy, wasn't it? Now go and make one for every member of your family. And if you want to make it even more fun, I've got another tutorial for a matching beard. Hey, head on over to coochiecoocieco.com. You'll find the tutorials that are written as well as the downloadable patterns for both the hat and the beard. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you soon, and Merry Christmas.